This is the Construction Leading Edge podcast from constructionleadingedge.com. My name is Todd DeWalt, and my job is to help you maximize profits and help you get out of your business, especially if you run a construction company. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. I have an interview with an expert on selling businesses. Her name is Kimia Shadrokh, and this is what she does. 7 days a week, she helps sell and buy businesses. And here's what you're going to get out of this interview. You'll learn about how a business is valuated. There are 3 components of a business valuation. We'll talk about the importance of setting up some form of recurring revenue and what's in it for you to do that. How long you should expect to stick around after you sell your business, when you should start listing your business for sale, and why you may want to do it a lot sooner than you expect, why you should never list a price on your business, who actually determines what a business is worth, the one surprising thing that you need to know when you go to market with your business, the single biggest mistake a lot of business owners make when they try to sell. There are also a few things you need to look at when considering a buyer. That's right. You need to do due diligence on the buyer because you're essentially getting married. The benefits of putting your business on the market the moment that you're thinking about it, the number one thing you can do to increase the valuation of your business. We talk about how constructive criticism is self-love, and there is one phase of the business selling journey that most people take their eye off the ball, but it's the most important time to stay focused on your business. This is great stuff. If you own a business or you're thinking about starting a business, you may want to listen to this one a few times, take notes. So I've got a couple of resources I want to share with you before we jump into that. So the first one is, if you want to get out of your business, I have an online training workshop that's available titled Get Out of Your Business, How to Make It Run Without You This Year. You can go to constructionleadingedge.com/get out, GETOUT. That's constructionleadingedge.com/get out. And sign up for that, and you'll learn some of the keys that you need to put into place in your business to make it run without you. Maybe you want to sell it one day, or maybe you just want to have the 3 things that business owners want more of: freedom, impact, and wealth. So if you want to do that, go to constructionleadingedge.com/get out and register for that free online training workshop. As a contractor, you manage a ton of jobs every day, and trying to keep up to speed and ensure work actually gets done takes up way too much time. And that's where Company Cam comes in. Every photo and video your guys take at a job is automatically organized by location and instantly synced from the field to wherever you are. Now, you'll know exactly what's happening across your company, be able to communicate more effectively, and cover your butt from future claims. Document your jobs, communicate with your crews, and protect your company, all with Company Cam, the only app every contractor needs. Get started today at companycam.com/CLE. All right, Kimia, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Looking forward to talking about how to sell your business and some of the other insider tips, maybe secrets about the mergers and acquisitions process. But before we get started, I'll just give you a moment. Introduce yourself. What's the name of your company, and what exactly do you do?
Great, Todd. Thank you for inviting me. Great to be here. So I work for a company called EBIT Associates. We are a merger and acquisition company. The company is actually headquartered in Chicago, but we have offices throughout the country. I'm actually in New York City, but we have offices, all over the US. And we also have actually several international offices. We have offices in China and in Asia and in India. So we're pretty much all over the map. And we've been around for about 25 years at this point. I'm a managing director there, and I work on sell-side advisory, which is basically counsel business owners that are looking to either sell or they're looking for a strategic partner and set out an exit strategy. And we also raise capital for companies during their various stages. For example, certain companies, maybe, especially during COVID, for example, a lot of companies were faced with the prospect of either exiting or if they could find some capital to get them through that difficult period. So we helped a lot of companies raise capital, sell some equity into the company, find a strategic partner so that they can get through the last couple of years and continue their business.
Yeah, it's been a very interesting time, probably unprecedented times the last couple of years. So let's start here. Walk us through the process of selling specifically a construction business, small business, let's say under, probably in the most cases, under $20 to $30 million in revenue per year. But just walk us through that process of selling a small construction business.
Absolutely. And the one thing I do want to mention, Todd, I've been doing this myself for 25 years. We were extremely busy the last couple of years. During COVID, I didn't get to go anywhere. All my friends were traveling. We were busy. The only difference we saw were the type of companies that investors were interested in. So whereas before, maybe they were interested more in retail, the last couple of years, they were very interested in the businesses that were sort of pandemic proof, essential businesses. And that's why, specifically construction businesses, they were one of the few industries that were open during the whole time during COVID. They didn't close. And a lot of them actually performed much better than the last couple of years. So we sold about 2 last year. We've obviously helped a lot with recapitalization as well. But the last couple of years, especially now with COVID, like I said, investors are looking for businesses that are pandemic proof, that are essential workers. So construction companies were very valuable and in demand the last couple of years. In terms of how the actual process works, the first step is we provide you a full business valuation. I can tell you the number one question I get asked literally on a daily basis. People will tell me, if my EBITDA is this much, what is my valuation? And I could tell you it's not a simple formula. That's why you have 2 different companies that could be in the same exact industry. One has a multiple of 5 and the other has a company of multiple of 10. There's a lot of nuances that go into an accurate business valuation. And obviously we provide a full and accurate valuation. We have an entire team of analysts here. Literally all they do all day is do valuations. And a true valuation is actually comprised of 3 different components. One is, yes, obviously your EBITDA, your net cash flow. 2 is the owner's discretionary. This is any charges that the owner takes out of the business, personal, for example, like travel, entertainment. It also is any equipment, any one-time equipment that the owner buys, which I know a lot of construction companies, if you buy an equipment that year, $50,000, $60,000, we add that back to your net cash flow. So that obviously increases your valuation. And the third factor, which is the most applicable to companies, is what the market calls Goodwill Factors. These are basically different variables of your business that increase your multiple, that make your business more niche. So for example, how long you've been in business, if you have any long-term contracts, if you have any recurring revenue, all of these, we add all the sum of these 3 components, and that is what goes against your multiple. So as I said, once we provide the business valuation, then we set up a call. Normally we do it in person, but obviously now we do it through Zoom, and we go over with the owner. We go over everything of what they're looking to do. Some owners will say, I'm looking to sell and I want to retire. I want to sell right away. Some people will say, no, well, I'm willing to sell, but I'm willing to stay with the company for a while longer. So we go over all the details of the company. Normally, when you sell a company, the mandatory period that the owner has to stay post-sale is 6 months. But I'll tell you 99.9% of the time, buyers want the owners to stay longer for obvious reasons. A, it gives them more confidence and assurance that the owner doesn't think that they want to sell the business because they feel like the business is going to tank afterwards. And also it just gives them, more assurance that it's going to be an easier transition. Obviously, the owner knows the business. So anything that gives them more confidence and it's viewed as being less risk in the view of an investor is great. So if the owner is willing to stay longer than 6 months, we use that as only leverage in negotiations. So if somebody gives you an offer for, simple math, $1 million for the business, but they want you to stay for 2 years, we'll say, we'll take the $1 million, but if you want them to stay longer, the compensation has to go up or the price of the business has to go up. So that's the mandatory period that they have to stay. Once we get all the details down of the business, we produce what's called a SIM, which is a confidential information memorandum. This is basically a book that our company produces on the company. It's about 50 pages. It's very, very extensive. It includes information on the company owners, who their clients are, the financials, any projections that they may have for the next couple of years. It's a summary that we present to our investors. Once that's approved, we go to market. I'll tell you, one of the biggest strategies that we use at EBIT Associates, which has been really, really helpful for us, is that once we go to market, and even though we provide the owner a full business valuation, we don't go to market with a price. So even though I'll tell a business owner, for example, your business might be worth $5 million, when we go to market and when we talk to investors, we don't put a price on the business. We basically just present the business and we see what kind of offers we get back. And that's been great for us because at the end of the day, the value of a business is only what someone is willing to pay for it. So if I tell a business owner their business is worth 5 million, or if I go out to market and I put the business up as 5 million, you'll never get an offer for 6 million, right? Nobody will ever negotiate up. But the strategy that we use is we don't put a price. And if somebody, for example, they see the value in the construction company for maybe they want their clients, maybe there's a service, a residential service, and the company that's buying it is a commercial business. So it just gives us more room to negotiate. And so that's one of the things that we've done in the years, and it's been very, very successful for us. The other strategy is that we have, like I said, we have international offices as well. So there are some businesses that say, I'd rather find an international investor, specifically the Asian investors. They're willing to pay a premium to get into the US market. They're usually willing to pay cash up front. So that's been one of the things that we've done, and one of our investors are. Another thing is at EBIT Associate, we don't limit ourselves to a certain type of business, and we don't limit ourselves to a certain size. I'll tell you, the smallest company I've ever sold is 2 million. The largest I've ever sold is 150 million. And the reason for that is because our investors sort of run the gamut from private equity groups, for example, Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, Blackstone. These are some of our investors. Then there are also high net worth families and individuals that include our investors. And there are also VC angels. Prior to my current role at EBIT, I was actually the executive vice president for Mark Cuban. I was working for one of his companies in San Francisco. And I'll tell you, the one thing I learned is that billionaires like to hang out with one another. So I met all these very wealthy and successful owners and investors. And they were always asking me, do you know of any interesting companies that I can invest in or anything that I can become a strategic partner in? So we have a group of VC angels that are also comprised of our investors. Once the owner improves the SIM, like I said, we go to market. Confidentiality is number one for us. We have an NDA, which we've used all these years. It's a legally binding document. We've never had a problem with it. 100% everything is done blindly. And then we gauge the feedback that we get. As we get back the NDAs, we talk to them, we vet them out, we make sure that they're financially legit. And if we think it's a good match with what the owner is looking for, then we set up a call. We do everything from the marketing to the negotiation to the due diligence process, all the way to closing. I'll tell you, the question I get asked a lot is business owners will tell me, what's the one thing you wish I knew prior to going to market? And I tell them, obviously in the beginning, we're going to need your time to go over the details, to understand the business model and get the financial set. But once we go to market, we actually don't want you involved. We do everything. And we tell you, we want you at that point to focus on your business. A big mistake I see sometimes is when business owners put their business on the market, they sometimes lose focus. They say, I'm selling the business anyway, and they don't focus so much on the business. The business starts to not perform so well. And they on the day of closing, the buyer can either renege or they can back out of the deal completely. So we say, we don't want you focused on our deal. We want you to stay focused on the business, make sure that that's still performing well and still profitable. And we do everything. So this doesn't take up a lot of your time, because I know a lot of owners are sometimes worried that they don't have time to sell their business. So it's not something for you. This is what we get paid for. We do everything, like I said, all the way up until closing. And at that point, our priority is to find an investor that we think obviously will give you a big check. Obviously, you want to do a lucrative deal, but also we want to find someone that will do right by you and will continue your legacy. I tell people I'm not married. I'm married to my job. It's a lot of work, but I love what I do. And it's the same thing. We say this is sort of like a marriage as well, where you're trying to find someone that obviously will give you a lot of money, but also, you're going to have to work with this person for a while. If you do a deal where you have to stay with the company for 6 months or more, You're going to have to work with these people. You want to make sure that you have a good relationship with them and that they'll do right by you and they'll continue your legacy. I can tell you many times I've seen owners where they sold their company to an investor because the investor was willing to give them a lot of money. And then once post-sale, they didn't have the same vision for the company and the same, the way that they wanted to take the business. And they ended up in court because the investor wanted to take the business in one direction and the owner didn't want to do that. So it's very important to find someone that you will have the right vision and as you'll have a good relationship with. Other than that, it's a very standard merger and acquisition contract. Our exclusive contract is 1 year. It doesn't take us a year to sell business. I can tell you that we're very, very aggressive. We literally market 365 days a week. I personally work 7 days a week myself. And we go to market and it's a 1 year exclusive contract. The commission is 10% paid on closing, but that's based on a sliding scale, obviously, based on the valuation of the company. And we have an upfront retainer, which is deducted from the commission. So it's a very standard M&A contract. Another thing that I get asked a lot by business owners is, how is the market? When is the good time to sell? And I always tell people, look, if I was a business owner, I would actually put my business on the market the minute I think about it. Even if my intention is not to sell today, I would still put my business on the market. And the reason for that is, like I said, because everything is done 100% confidentially and blindly, and you can literally be on the market for 2 years and nobody will know how long your business has been trying to sell for. So, it's not like a house. If a house is on the market for a while, people will say, well, there's got to be something wrong with the house, right? How come the house is not being sold? When you put a business on the market, because everything is done blindly, nobody will know how long you're on the market. And if nothing else, the only thing you lose as a business owner is exposure. But, there might be an investor today that's looking for your type of business that he might not be on the market in 6 months. So if nothing else, you get feedback from investors. You might get an NDA or an offer from an investor that says, I like your business, but I don't like A, B, and C. So you now know that you have to work on A, B, and C to make your business more appealing to a prospective investor. So it's basically ammunition. And you take the next year, year and a half, whatever it is, you work on those features of your business that are the weaknesses, and you can work on that and then go to market when you're actually truly ready, and then, have a more appealing business to an investor. So I always tell people, listen, always go to market when you think about it. You lose nothing. Our contract is 1 year, but we never stop working for you. Even after that 1 year, if for whatever reason we don't sell your business, the retainer is always deducted from the commission and you never owe us anything else, before going to market. So it's like I said, it's a very strict standard and M&A merger and acquisition process.
Fantastic. I appreciate that. Lots of questions. I want to break down a few things. First of all, what I found is that investors look at a business very differently than the business owner does. The business owner looks at it as, I'm not sure how they look at it, but let's talk about the differences between how your investors look at a business and how a lot of small business owners look at their business.
Sure. Well, I mean, if you view the business from an investor standpoint, the investor is always looking for businesses that have less risk, right? They're adverse to risk. So for example, one of the reasons why I was saying construction businesses right now are more in demand than they were 2-3 years ago during COVID is because these were the businesses that were open. They were considered to be essential. They were considered to be pandemic proof. So from the investor standpoint, they're always looking at it as what business will give me the biggest return on my capital and what business would I be taking less risk by buying. At the end of the day, everybody's taking a risk here, right? So the investor takes a risk in the sense that I might buy this business. It might do better once I buy it. It might do worse. And even the owner, I would say, is taking a risk because he might sell the business and then the business might start performing better. A lot of business owners that I talk to, sometimes they say, I want to sell, but I'm doing really well this year. And so I think, if I do this for another year, I can do even better and I can sell my business for more. And I tell them, look, nobody could have predicted even COVID was going to happen. So how do you know that? It's always a risk on both standpoints. As entrepreneurs, I think business owners stand at, and it's just sort of gauging when would be less of a risk. From the standpoint of a business owner, they're saying, how can I make my business less that I don't think next year I'll perform worse or that I can sell it for the best. And we always tell people, listen, obviously the best time to sell is when you're doing better because that's when you have the highest valuation and you're the most appealing to a prospective investor.
So that's a great question. I saw somebody post this question, or they shared a conversation. They were brought in to talk to a business owner. The business owner said, you're offering like a 3 or 4 valuation on earnings. Why would I sell my business if I can just recoup that in 3 to 4 years? Why would I sell my business? And the guy was like, well, listen, remember, you called me to talk about this. So when this is kind of a catch-22. I've seen people work hard to get their business profitable and turn it into a sellable asset. What are some things, well, how would you answer that question when they say, I'm making a lot of money, my business kind of runs like I want to, why would I sell it?
Well, that's funny. I get that question asked a lot. There are different reasons why business owners sell. Sometimes business owners sell because they want to retire. Sometimes they sell because maybe, like I said, during COVID, a lot of businesses were doing better than the previous year. So they know that now their valuation would be higher. So some businesses, for example, have been getting, if they were, especially in the construction business, but since they were more in demand, maybe they were getting a 6 or 7 multiple, whereas before they were getting a 5 or 4 multiple. And they know that once this period passes, they're going to be going back to those normal multiples. And then, like I said, sometimes people have situations. We had a business owner that unfortunately called us last year. He said, I have terminal cancer. I know I'm dying. I need to sell. At the end of the day, it's a personal decision. This is something that every business owner has to take into consideration. Your multiple differs from year to year. This year, that you might get a higher multiple than next year, but it's always a personal decision.
Yeah, good stuff. What I found is a lot of small businesses, especially construction businesses, unfortunately, the owner doesn't really own a business, they own a job, because if you extract or subtract the business owner out of the equation, it just falls apart because they are wearing way too many hats. They're doing sales, business development, marketing, running operations, running finance. For those people who are in that situation and they're thinking a few years down the road, I'd like to exit my business, what should they do to position themselves so that their business is sellable?
Absolutely. Great question. I get asked that a lot, not just in the construction industry, but there are certain businesses. For example, we had a design company where the owner's name was on the company. And so for these companies, obviously the owner, anybody who buys these companies is going to want the owner to stay longer than the 6-month mandatory period. So I always tell people, especially in the construction business or in businesses where you're playing such a vital role to the business, whoever buys your company is going to want you to stay longer than 6 months. So you should actually go to market or try to sell your company when, if you say 2 to 3 years down the line, that's when you should actually go to market. For 2 reasons. First of all, you can get more money. Like I said, if you're willing to stay longer, post more than the 6-month mandatory period, you use that as leverage in negotiation so that you can get more money. And also just gives you a more time to phase out. So you're going to have to stay 6 months. Don't put your business on the market when you want to sell now. When your intention is to sell 2 or 3 years down the line, that's when you actually try to look for investors and sellers, because then whoever buys your company is going to want you to stay for 2 years, and then you can gradually phase out. You can train people to take on certain of your roles. So if you're doing, like you said, you're doing the marketing and you're doing the selling and you're doing the business development, you can hire someone during that period once you're sold to learn how to do the marketing so that you can actually gradually leave. And that's common in a lot of businesses I see where the owners are doing, like you said, they're wearing several hats and they're doing various roles. And they say, sometimes it's too overwhelming. But I just don't know what else to do. So we tell them, give yourself more time to sell the business and find an investor.
From an investor standpoint, which business is more attractive? A business where the owner is wearing all the hats and is saying, after I sell, I will put people in place to extract myself, or that's option one. Or would they find option two more attractive, where the business owner is operating truly like a CEO and they have key people in leadership already?
That's interesting you asked that. And the thing about our company, as I mentioned to you, if you look at our website and our history, we don't limit ourselves to a certain size and we don't limit ourselves to a certain industry. And the reason for that is because we have different types of investors. As I mentioned, our investors are private equity groups, they're high net worth families, they're VC angels. And different investors want different things. I'll tell you, we recently sold a company where literally the company was just the owner. He had no employees. He had some people that he would hire on an hourly basis. And he always told us, he's like, the thing I'm worried about is that they're going to see this as a negative, that once I sell and I leave, the investor is not going to be interested in the company. We found an investor that actually liked that fact because he said, I know you have low overhead. I know that you don't have a lot of cost, and whatever profit you're making is actual true profit. And he was very interested in that company. So like I said, different investors would look for different things. To some investors, they actually see that as a pro, that there's only one employee and that there's, he's wearing all the hats. They say, okay, well, he'll have to stay with the company longer post-sale, but at least I know I don't have to take on certain employees. Sometimes we'll sell a business where the owner will say, these employees have been with me for 20, 30 years. And if I sell, I'm only going to sell contingent that whoever buys this company also takes the employees with them. And sometimes an investor views that as a negative. They're like, well, what if I don't want to hire that person? Or what if I don't want this person? So like I said, it really depends on who the investor is. And because of that, we have various types of investors. Sometimes private equity groups don't like that. They like the fact that there are different, that there's not all the eggs are not in one basket and there's only the CEO. But like I said, again, it just depends on who the investor is.
What are some red flags that make a business unsellable to investors?
Again, depends on the investor. Sometimes the company is so niche that to some investor, they'll view that as being a positive. The other thing is certain companies, and this is what we saw during COVID, certain companies were not doing well at all. And then they did really well during COVID. So then an investor was worried, okay, well, what if I buy this company? And then once COVID is over, then it starts not performing well. So if there are really highs and lows in the financials, some investors obviously view that as risk because they wonder what may have happened during that short period, especially if the company has been around for too long. So again, depends on the investor, but the financials, the ups and downs in the business is sometimes a big thing for an investor. If a lot of people have been leaving the company recently, they'll view that as a negative. If there isn't, some sort of stability. The other thing is sometimes a company will have they'll be very, very profitable, but they'll only have one or two clients and customers that take up a huge portion of their sales. So they view that as a negative. We had a company, very, very successful company, but they had five clients, their entire business, and one of their clients was actually 60% of their profit. So investors view that as negative. They worried, okay, well, what if they lose that one client and that's it? All their profits go down, or 60% of their profits go down. So we always tell people, try not to put all your eggs in one basket. Try to diversify. Try to, if you're doing one service, maybe try to add another service so that you can see that you are, there are different components of your business.
I'd like to talk about recurring revenue a little bit. It's my understanding that, just about every construction company is contract based. They live in the projects, so to speak. So they're always out looking for one-off projects, and some have long-term contracts, which are more attractive. But how important is having some sort of recurring revenue, for example, in the form of service contracts, extended warranty programs, things like that? How important is recurring revenue to the valuation of a business?
It's great. As I mentioned to you, the true business valuation is comprised of three components, right? So it's your EBITDA, your owner's discretionary, and the third factor is what the market calls Goodwill Factors. One of those Goodwill Factors is recurring revenue. If you have any long-term contracts, if you've been in business for more than 10 years, believe it or not, your location. So for example, businesses in larger cities like New York, California, these have higher multiples. But if you can do anything, like I said, if you view it from the investor standpoint, if you have any recurring revenue, if you have long-term contracts, this is less risk for them because they feel like, okay, even if I sell, they'll have these clients 5 or 6 years down the road. So if you can secure those recurring revenues, if you can secure those long-term contracts, sometimes I tell business owners, if you're looking to sell, if your intention, obviously you always, the best businesses we always say are the businesses that on day one, they start thinking about their exit strategy. So if you're thinking about selling 3 or 4 years down the line, right then when you're doing contracts, try to do them 5 or 6 year contracts, just so that you have that, so that when you actually do go to market, you can say, look, I have these long-term contracts. But if you can secure those recurring revenues, anything, and I know that's in the construction company, like you said, they have those contracts. if you can do that, it only helps your valuation and it increases your multiple at the end.
Yeah, one of the things I work with a lot of, excuse me, I work with a lot of home builders, and they're one-off contracts. That's just the nature of the business. And one of the more intriguing ways to recession-proof their business and increase valuation would be to come up with some sort of a home services program that has recurring revenue. Other opportunities would be, examples would be if you're an HVAC contractor, then really focus on service contracts, annual service contracts. If you're an electrician, sell emergency generators and sell contracts, service contracts for those. It's a different way of thinking. And frankly, a lot of business owners look at it and say, that's a lot of hassle. It's a scheduling logistics nightmare for $80 a month, for example, for generator service. But if you have 100 of those,
exactly,
then it gets really interesting. And frankly, that could be more valuable than the new construction side. So I've looked at acquiring an HVAC business, for example, and the guidance I've seen is stay out of new construction. If you want to build your business into a sellable asset, stay out of new construction because it doesn't add to the valuation of your business. Really focus on recurring revenue, the service contracts. Yeah. So it sounds like one thing people can do to increase the valuation of their business is Goodwill Factors, specifically increase recurring revenue. What is one simple thing a business owner can do to increase their valuation increase the valuation of their business?
Number one, I would say, is loyal employees and a strong management team. All the employees should have a solid benefits plan. Top management should have a non-compete and or confidentiality agreements. The company's greatest asset and the biggest value increaser is its employees, I would say. Loyal and happy employees who make for a strong company. Having a solid management team removes the stigma of the one-man band. So if there's one thing, there's obviously a lot of value adders that they can do. But if I would say the one thing, the top thing would be just to have a strong management team for sure.
And why is that? Why does that increase the valuation?
It just shows stability. Again, you want to, if you have employees that are saying bad things about company, obviously there's a risk in reputation also. But when you have a company that has a strong management team, again, it's like you're putting all your eggs in one basket, right? So if the investor says, okay, so if there's a few people in this group and they're all strong, they have a strong CFO, they have a strong, business development person, then I know that it's like a game of Jenga, right? So if you take one piece out, the whole thing isn't going to fall apart. So if you have the core and the foundation of the company is strong, then again, less risk and adversity from the investor standpoint.
Yeah, I like that visual. Your business is like the game of Jenga. It's all stacked up. And I would say for a lot of people, the business owner is at the bottom. And if they are pulled out, then everything falls down. So yeah, absolutely. Having a strong management team, a strong structure in place, definitely, I can see where that would lower the risk from an investor standpoint, because they're wondering what's going to happen when the owner steps out. And are they going to be able to find a team and train the team? Are they going to be able to extract themselves from this business that they've spent 10, 15, 20, 30 years building? That would be a big question mark, and which would be answered by having a good, strong team in place that puts the owner as a smaller piece in that Jenga puzzle up toward the top. So there's less risk. I like that.
And as I mentioned, the best companies, if some of the most successful companies are the companies from day one, they start thinking about their exit strategy. The most founders, the best founders and the most successful CEOs are the ones that think about how they can be replaceable. And they don't want to be an integral part of the business. In other words, you want to basically allocate your the things that you're supposed to do to different people so that you can, the most successful companies that I've sold, the most lucrative ones were the ones where the CEO says, I come in maybe in the mornings for an hour, but I don't really do much. I have people who do everything. Those are the ones that the companies, the investors that are interested in. They don't want the companies where, oh my God, the CEO is so important to this business that if he leaves, then I'm screwed. So that's one of the key things. Like I said, strong team, strong management, and make yourself, obviously you want to be part of the company, but don't make yourself essential.
Yeah, I interviewed an owner recently who said his job is to constantly be working himself out of a job.
Yes.
Yep. Yep. And that's one of the things I spend a lot of time helping construction business owners do, is answer the question, how do I get out of my business? How do I put this team in place? How do I get my processes in place? How do I get it out of my head? For most small businesses, the processes live in the owner's head, and it needs to be transferred to a more shareable medium, at least for people who can't find mind readers. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that is something I want to emphasize, is that we will never force you to sell. Look, at the end of the day, I understand this is the company owner's baby. They worked all their years, their lives to work on this. Our job is we work for you. If the owners are in the driver's seat, our job is to bring you offers and to bring you different investors. We're actually legally bound to present you all NDAs once we go to a formal engagement. And we never force you to sell. So it's not like, once you go to market, I have to sell this year. Like I said, you go to market, you sort of gauge the kind of interest you get. And a lot of times people will tell me, well, I don't know what to do. I don't know if I should sell. I don't know if I should find a strategic partner. I don't know if I should maybe sell only part of the company. And the beauty of this business is that you don't have to know prior to go to market. Like I said, when we produce the SIM and we present the company to our investors, we don't say, okay, this person is definitely looking to sell, and we don't put a price on the business. You get back your interest from the investors, you get feedback from the investors, and based on the feedback you get, you can make a decision. Sometimes, we had owners where they said, I'm only looking to sell 80% of the company. I want to keep 20%, but they got an offer for 100% of the company, which was so lucrative. The owner said, well, I'd be crazy not to sell. So you don't have to decide prior to going to market. If you just even have an interest, go to market. Like I said, we provide you a full business valuation. If nothing else, you get back education from the market, and you understand your business better from the feedback.
Yeah, that is such an interesting strategy, to look at your business as a product that you're selling, take it to the market, get some real life feedback on what you need to improve with your product that is your business, and then work on that to improve it. And I think that requires something that a lot of people struggle with, which is hugging the porcupine of self-awareness, right? Because I've heard that self-awareness is like a porcupine, the hugging a porcupine. The closer you get, the more uncomfortable it becomes. And a lot of people, they're afraid their baby's ugly, and they don't want to hear, Todd, your business is ugly. It is a disaster. So they never ask. But I love this idea of take it to market, get some real life feedback, see what it's worth now, years before you want to sell it, and then find out what people are looking for. That's my approach to creating a product, is find out what people are looking for and then give them that. And it just takes a lot of the guessing out of the equation. Yeah, absolutely. I like that.
Constructive criticism is self-love. You get back that response, and you basically learn how to make your product just more beautiful. So I think it's actually a great thing to do.
I'm going to write that down. Constructive criticism is self-love.
100% in all aspects of life, right? Not just in business. I think that goes in all aspects of life.
Yeah. So I like to help people avoid pitfalls. What is the number one mistake you see people making when selling their business?
Oh, absolutely. What I mentioned is that people put their business on the market and then they lose focus. They say, like I said, they say, I'm going to sell. So maybe they don't worry so much about their profit. They don't pay attention so much to their clients. Nothing is final until that contract is signed on the day of closing. Whoever is interested in your business, yes, they give you a letter of intent. Yes, you go through due diligence period. Yes, you have the closing date. But until that dotted line is signed, nothing is final. So your focus until that very last minute has to be to make sure that your business is doing well. Many, many times I've seen people put their business on the market, and then once they have the letter of intent, they say, okay, well, I'm closing next month. And then they start planning travel, and they're not focused enough. And then on day of closing, the buyer looks at the financials. He has until the last minute he can look at your financials. And he says, well, how come the business the last 3 months is not doing so well? He's like, you know what? I want to renege on the whole deal. And they can renege on the whole deal. So actually that period when you put your business on the market is the most critical period. And it's the time where you have to stay the most focused on your business and actually make sure that your business is performing at its best.
So counterintuitive and so interesting. It feels like after you have an offer on your business,
Yeah.
it seems like, oh, I can relax. I can take my eye off the ball, start dreaming about sitting on a beach somewhere. But so what you're saying is you need to do the opposite of that. Once you have an offer, you need to focus even more on the business to get it across the finish line.
Yeah, I mean, I had to go back to this again, but going back to the whole marriage comparison, I have people who they get married, and then once they get married, they say maybe they don't start taking care of themselves as much. That period is the marriage period. You want to stay just as attractive as ever. You want to make sure things are going well. And so make sure your company is still performing well during that period.
Great advice. So let's do this. Talk a little bit about some more about the services you offer, and then how can people connect with you to learn more? If they're interested in contacting you, what are the first few steps that they should take?
I'll be very honest. I give everybody my cell phone number. We do a lot of business with Europe and we do a lot of business with Asia. I'm literally working around the clock just because of the time differences. I can give you my cell phone number. Otherwise, our website is EBIT Associates. So that's EBITAssociates.com. And my email address is kshadrokh@ebitassociates.com.
So go to the website. I'll include that link in the show notes. Go check that out. I appreciate you offering to share your cell phone number, but let's not do that. I don't want you to get a lot of spam calls. But yeah, if you're interested, the takeaways here, big takeaways would be, if you are starting your business, you need to think about your exit strategy. This is a counterintuitive piece of information or advice that I've heard. For example, if you're going into a partnership, the very first thing you should talk about is, how are we going to break this thing up? How will we dissolve? Same thing with your business. Everybody that I've talked to is really fascinated with and excited about, how do I get into business? And they wait too long to think about, how do I get out of this business? So start thinking about your exit strategy 2, 3, in some cases, even if it's 15 years down the road, start thinking about your exit strategy. Here's a quick question. You mentioned having someone's name on the business. Does that matter? Does it matter if someone's last name is on the business?
That's a personal thing. Like I said, we sold a design company where the owner's name was on the business. And she said to me, Kimia, I want to sell my business and I don't care what the money is for. I just want to make sure it's a good buyer that's not going to ruin my name and my reputation once they buy the business. It's a personal thing. Sometimes people will say, well, once you buy the business, they're buying the business for my clients or they're buying it for the services. So they change the name of the business. If the business is very well known, obviously for the investor, it's a great thing because they know that, it has name recognition, right? So they don't have to start the business from scratch. They have clients. They can, sometimes the only reason that they're not doing well is because they lack the funds for marketing. So an investor says, well, I'm going to buy the business has name recognition. They have great reputation. I'm going to pump some capital in the company and grow the business. And that's how they're intent on buying the business. So it doesn't necessarily matter. It has pros and cons both ways. Cons, if the business owner leaves and his name is on the business, obviously there's that part of the business that's going to be missing. But really, it depends on who the investor is and who the buyer ends up being.
Great stuff. So what I'm hearing is, start thinking about your exit strategy now, regardless of when or if you think about exiting the business. Get some real feedback on your business. Get your management team in place. Start to design it to run without you. Absolutely. And start with the end in mind. I talk a lot about right to left thinking. Go out to the right side of the page, whether that's exit strategy, succession, but figure out what do you want at the end of your career, or in 5 years or 10 years, and then work from right to left, work backwards. What do I need to do? My favorite question is, what would it take to get out of this business? And then what would it take to do that? And it sounds like a great place to start would be to contact Kimia. So I really appreciate the time you've taken here. Again, folks, if you're listening, check out the show notes. You'll find a link to her website, and I would advise you to go there. There's a lot of great resources, and then be sure to reach out to get started talking about your exit strategy. Well, Kimia, I really appreciate it. This has been fantastic. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Great. Thank you for having me, Todd.
All right, there you go. Be sure to check out the show notes for the links and for Kimia's contact information. Go to her website, ebitassociates.com. That link is in the show notes. Check out the resources, contact Kimia, and start that process today. As always, I appreciate the ratings and the reviews. Thank you so much for listening. If you could take a moment, leave a rating and or review on the podcast player of your choice, that would be fantastic. And don't forget, if you want to get out of your business and make it run without you this year, go register for my free online workshop at constructionleadingedge.com/get out. Thank you so much. I'll see you next time. Remember, with Company Cam, there's no more second guessing about what's getting done or pestering your crews to send you pictures. Every photo and video your guys take at a job is automatically organized by location and instantly synced from the field to wherever you are. Now you'll know exactly what's happening across your company. Get started today at companycam.com/CLE.